Magandang araw po sa lahat. Ako po pala si Geraldo C. Ang itackle natin ngayon na ang topic ay about sa word Englishes Listen to by the subject for purposive communication with our instructor, Miss Sir Fernando Jr. Cortez. Hello, sir. So, word Englishes. So, introduction. English language is a universal language that we use to communicate with other people all around the world. But because of our differences, some English words were modified as evident in different accent there are now. So today, fasten your seatbelt as we begin our journey to know the varieties of English language. The varieties of English. English is a worldwide language between 1.5 billion and 2.5 billion people across the planet speak English. Between 375,000 and 400,000 people are native English speakers. In view of this statistic, many consider the English language to be a world language since the English language has become so widespread. It is no surprise that different varieties of English have arisen. So, there are many varieties of English spoken in the world. The oldest varieties of English is the British English. Spoken in the United Kingdom, approximately 60 million people are native British English speakers. The variety of English with the largest number of native speakers is American English, with 225 million native speakers. The other major varieties of English are Canadian English, Australian English, New Zealand English, South African English, and Indian English. So, linguists also recognize another classification of variety of English known as World English. All varieties of English share the same basic tenets of the language, but certain words, phrases, or linguistic construct may differ. For an instance, in British English, one says, "I'm going to hospital." In American English, one says, "I'm going to the hospital." So in British English, one may say, "He is going to the cinema." In American English, one says, he is going to movies. And in South Africa English, the phrase is going to the bioscope. So next, varieties of English may be further divided into dialects such as Anglo, Cornish, or Welsh English. In Great Britain, Gala or Gulf Southern. In the United States, and Bengali English and Southern Indian English in India. Whatever the variety of dialect English speakers the world over may communicate with each other with only occasional gaps in understanding. As you heard, marami talagang English na mga salita around the world. Isa na dito ang American, Indian, Asian, or iba-iba. Pero yung salita nila is pareho lang yung thought. But the dialect is differences. For example, in American English, often abbreviated to is a So it is a variant of the English language spoken mainly in the United States. About 2/3 of the world's native speakers of English live in American and speak this variant. English was introduced to North America by British settlers during the colonization period, 17th century. It was also influenced by the many different nationalities which settled in the US since then and to a certain extent. with the language spoken by the Native American population. So these days, American English is one of the main varieties of English taught around the world, along with British English. Different countries, due to historical and political influence, often have a preference for one or the other. However, for English teachers, there is very little to choose between the two. It's not difficult for an American teacher to teach British English and vice versa. For example, so ang American English kay nagikan dahil sa British English. Pero ang kasagaran ginagamit gyud kay is American English. And this is the 2/3 of the world native speakers of English spoken mainly in the United States. And the left is the British English. So, kasagaran nila ginagamit kay ang American English. Next is Australian English. Australian English is a variant of the English language spoken mainly in Australia. Australian English began to diverge from British English shortly after Australian was settled in the late 18th century. It is similar to New Zealand English and bears some resemblance to certain dialects of Southeast England. Generally speaking, Australian English spelling corresponds to British English spelling. So, Australian English makes a great detail of use of diminutives. Example, arbo for afternoon, footy for football. For a list of major differences between different kinds of English, see varieties of English grammar and varieties of English vocabulary. So sa Australian English kay ang ilang murag ginasulat nila nga kuan, murag ilang pag-spell sa ilang thoughts sa kato nga idea is short na lang kumpara example kay katong arvo for afternoon. So ang arvo kay gamay na lang yun siya. Pero sa ila nanay pasabot nga kana siya kay afternoon. And also the footy for football. So footy means football sa Australian English. So next na pod kay Black English. So Black English is very broad term used to refer to British English and American English as spoken by the black communities in the US and the UK. To a lesser extent, it's also used to refer to black communities places like the Caribbean and Africa. Two of the major sub-varieties of English are African American Vernacular and British Black English. See below for more on this. Interest in the existence of Black English began in the early 20th century with several publications by language George Philip Craft, who attributed the existence of Black English to the baby talk that he assumed slave masters must have employed when speaking to their slaves. He hypothesized that slave masters addressed their servants in simplified English similar to that used with babies. The view that black people who spoke in Black English were deprived of a real dynamic and multifaceted language continued through the 1960s until William Labov, a linguist at the University of Pennsylvania, followed by J.L. Dillard, Geneva's Metterman, and other linguists mounted an impressive defense of the legitimacy of Black English, refuting the language deprivation theories of previous time. So, ang ginagamit dahil sa Black English kay duha ka language nga giderive sa British English and American English. So napansin ninyo sa kasagaran sa mga Black American kay Maglahi-lahi ang ilang inistoryahan kung mag-istorya sila. Next is British English. British English is a variant of the English language spoken mainly in the United Kingdom. Along with American English, British English is one of the main variants taught in most ASL, AFL programs. Bear in mind, however, that there is in fact no single British English variation of English. Instead, there are considerable number of variations mainly found in different locations. Thus, for example, there is Scottish English, Irish English, Welsh English, Northumbrian, Norfolk, Cornish, the Queen's English, RBC English, RP or rested pronunciation. However, the differences between these variations are mainly one of accents and pronunciation with a few vocabulary variants rather than difference in grammar. So next, so those are the variety of English around the world, but there is more of that, like Filipino English. So which variety of English should you speak? For me, I'm using American English. So is there a correct variety of English? So the research says highlights how dynamic, fragmented, and mobile the English language has become. At the same time, the influence of traditional gatekeepers of standard English such as the BBC, Weakening, We Live, BBC Time, the influence of traditional gatekeepers of standard English such as the BBC is weakening. We live in a world where where English crosses national boundaries and migration brings people together from different backgrounds and cultures. Consequently, we are probably more aware than ever before of the different ways we draw upon language in relation to linguistic and socio-cultural contexts. Even though English is used around the world for the purpose of trade, travel, medicine, and so on, it is an interesting fact the majority of the world's population today is a largely bilingual, if not multilingual even, a nation where English is the another tongue. In parts of Birmingham in the UK, for example, there are primarily and secondary schools where nearly 100% of pupils speaks English as an additional English language. In many others, 40% is norm. The implication of this education policy are that we can no longer speak of the superiority of one variety of English over all others. Instead, we need to recognize the roles and functions that different varieties of English, including that of standard English, fulfill. So, thank you for listening. So, dito nagtatapos yung topic ko.